It's just about time for prom in Leawood, Kansas. And all the girls are desperate to find that perfect dress for the big night. But there was a time when dreams of prom were forgotten and a shocking crime terrorized these innocent teens. For Lee Hammond, pictures speak louder than words.
When you're an artist, it's not really what you do, it's who you are. That's all I've ever wanted to do.
Lee has a keen eye for detail.
Wait for that to dry, and then we're going to come in with this peach color.
Which comes in handy, because she's also a certified police sketch artist. And Lee Hammond's skills are about to be put to the test. It all started one afternoon when Roger Kemp decided to knock off work early.
I came home and I came in the house and our son Tyler called.
2 of Roger's children work at the local swimming pool. When Tyler begins his shift, his sister Allie wraps up hers. But not today.
Tyler had shown up at 5 to relieve Allie, and he'd called and said he couldn't find her. And I just said, well, that sounds strange.
Allie is a responsible 19-year-old who would never miss her shift.
I just turned right around and drove down to the pool.
Roger searches the entire pool, but there's no sign of Allie.
Turned around to leave, and then I thought, well, I'll just take a couple steps more toward the pump house. And I looked down, and I saw a leg sticking out from under a tarp.
Roger yells for his son Tyler to call 911. Officer Sean Mulcahy is on patrol when he gets the call.
The call came out as a party injured at a pool. I started responding, then they upgraded it to possible J1, which is murder. What I thought was, is someone exaggerating? I believe a murder happened in this city.
Officer Mulcahy races to the pool.
When I got to the scene, I immediately went into the pump room.
And there, Mulcahy witnesses a heartbreaking sight.
The victim was lying down on her back. Her father was kneeling down next to her, holding her hand and telling her, hold on, dear, you're going to be okay. Police are here, they're going to help you.
But tragically, Officer Mulcahy realizes that no one can help Allie Kemp.
She was beaten almost beyond recognition.
Allie Kemp has been brutally murdered.
Having been a father myself, you can just put yourself in the position of losing your daughter. It was very traumatic.
Police immediately canvass the area, hoping that someone saw something unusual. Meanwhile, concerned neighbors like Lee Hammond closely followed the news.
The police part of me was listening to see if they had any leads or any witnesses.
And Lee isn't the only curious resident. The news of Allie's murder has reached everyone.
Well, I just can't believe anything like this would happen here in Johnson County.
Just right up the street from us.
Drew and Joanne Bodner know that the news is every parent's worst nightmare.
I don't think people are going to let their kids go to the pools anymore, let alone let their kids work there.
Back at the precinct, Detective Scott Hansen takes up the case. And this one hits close to home.
Most of us my age within the department have daughters that would be about that age bracket. Miss Kemp had everything going for her, just starting to live her life.
With a violent killer on the loose, investigators know that no child is safe.
If something like that could happen to Allie, it could certainly happen to any one of our kids.
Detective Hansen and his partner Joe Langer examine the details of the crime and immediately zero in on a few critical clues.
That morning it was kind of overcast and rainy, so there wasn't a lot of use of the pool. I think that somebody had probably scoped out the pool and knew that Allie was there alone.
It doesn't appear that she was specifically targeted. It was more or less someone that was going to be at the pool by herself.
Detectives' worst fears are confirmed. They're dealing with a killer who will attack anyone.
This antibiotic tube that was taken from the first aid kit that was located right by the door. There was blood transfer on both the ointment tube and the tube's cap, and the lab was able to get DNA from both of those.
And the antibiotic tube holds another chilling clue.
Because of the ointment tube being opened, we think it's possible that there was a sexual assault that was going to take place. For some reason, according to the autopsy, it did not take place.
Was the killer stopped in the act?
The body was covered with the tarp when Mr. Kemp found him.
So we think he covered the body with that tarp to hide it because he was startled or interrupted in the middle of this attack.
Someone must have seen Allie's killer. Could this mystery witness be the missing link to the investigation?
Every time I talk to my mom, are you being safe? Did you walk out to your car by yourself today? Do you have your doors locked?
I was much more aware of my surroundings and trying to, you know, be careful about that.
More cautious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I know I wasn't allowed to go to our neighborhood pool by myself anymore, but I always felt safe until that happened.
Back at the station, Detective Scott Hansen focuses on a critical detail. He knows the killer hastily covered Allie's body with a pool tarp.
There's no doubt in my mind that he placed the tarp over Allie's body to hide her, would give him time to distance himself from the scene.
A call for witnesses goes out, and it's not long before detectives are rewarded with new information.
There were two lawn care workers working on the pool grounds that afternoon. They report seeing this pickup come through the parking lot 3 or 4 times, circling the lot.
But investigators are about to get a break that's even bigger.
Detectives were contacted by one of Allie's friends who had stopped by the pool that day to see her. She had pulled up to the pool and was honking her horn to try to get Allie's attention. She noticed a man standing by the pool entrance gates.
There's an excellent chance Allie's friend got a good look at the killer. But there's a catch.
When she saw the individual, she thought it was possibly Allie's boss, thought maybe she was going to get Allie in trouble. So she intentionally tried to not make eye contact with this individual.
Allie's friend is also extremely traumatized. She can't remember much of anything.
She was hesitant because of the trauma of her friend just being murdered.
It's a critical setback for the investigation. Still, there's one last thing they can try.
Miss Hammond was brought in to meet with Allie's friend.
The skills of local artist Lee Hammond are about to be put to the ultimate test.
She was very upset, was having a very hard time concentrating.
Still, Lee thinks she can calm her witness down.
The most important thing that a person needs to understand is that I do all the work, and there's no right or wrong answers.
And it works. Lee is able to coax a description from the distraught girl.
She basically remembered his face shape because he was a stocky individual. She also remembered a lot about his eyes.
And for the first time, investigators get a glimpse of their suspect.
Working through the composite was a very time-consuming thing, and the information she was able to get out of that young lady was terrific.
With no time to lose, the composite and the description of the truck are immediately released to the public. And the investigation goes into overdrive.
The number of calls that came in as far as tips probably doubled, if not tripled.
But there's one tip that really captures detectives' attention.
We did receive a tip on an individual named James Strader, and the tip indicated that there was a very close match or resemblance to the composite.
Local resident James Strader is a dead ringer for Lee Hammond's composite. Investigators immediately locate him for questioning, but they're disappointed when he offers up an alibi.
He said that he would have been at work that day. The detective followed that up by contacting his employer. The boss was convinced 100% that he was at the shop that afternoon and could not be involved in the case.
It appears that Strader merely bears an unfortunate resemblance to the composite. Detectives are forced to eliminate him as a suspect.
He was crossed off the list, and we moved on with other leads.
Tips continue to come and go, but as the seasons grow colder, so too do the leads. But Roger Kemp is relentless.
I never wanted to hear the words cold case. We had to keep leads coming in because you're always looking for that thread or that string to that predator to catch him. Someone out there knows something, and you need to get him to come forward.
Lee Hammond has worked on dozens of cases, but Roger's determination rallies the community like never before.
Roger Kemp would not let people forget what had happened and that we're still looking for this guy. And because of that, we all just came together.
And detectives refused to let Roger down.
His dedication to not let his daughter's case turn into a cold case certainly helped drive us along to try to successfully resolve it for him and his family.
Then, after 6 months of no leads, the case suddenly springs to life again. Detective Hansen learns that a local man is on the run after being accused of kidnapping and sexual assault. And his name rings a bell.
Strader went on a criminal spree.
James Strader suddenly jumps back on investigators' radar in a major way.
But we needed to look at him a little closer.
Could Allie's killer have slipped through their fingers? That's coming up next on Suburban Secrets. Like the rest of her community, Leawood resident and police sketch artist Lee Hammond just can't get over the murder of Allie Kemp.
This terribly violent murder occurred just a few miles from me, which is scary.
But now, an old suspect has reemerged in a big way.
Mr. Strader resurfaced as a possible suspect in this case when he became involved in a crime spree, which included the kidnapping and sexual assault of a young lady here in the Kansas City area. He then went to southern Missouri and committed a similar act in that area.
Strader is a wanted man after his recent crime spree. While authorities try to track him down, detectives on the Allie Kemp case re-examine him as a possible suspect.
He's really similar on the composite, and then also on the truck. We've got a pretty close match, but we never did get his DNA, so we probably need to take another look.
But James Strader has vanished.
We were trying to contact friends, family, anybody that might know his location. We were extremely frustrated when we couldn't find him.
But Strader is about to make a stupid mistake. 2 states away from Kansas, he decides to steal some gas.
He was in southern Utah, got some gasoline, took off.
The clerk calls the police, and Strader is pulled over. An officer confronts him about the theft.
Officer's only investigation at that point was for the gas drive-off.
But just when it looks like Strader will fool law enforcement again, he fesses up that he's a wanted man.
Mr. Strader indicated that he knew he was wanted in Kansas City.
James Strader is immediately arrested.
My phone went off at 2:30 in the morning, and it was one of the news reporters. And they said, "Lee, we've got him." And they said, "Your drawing looks exactly like this guy they've apprehended, and they're bringing him in town."
Back in Kansas, investigators begin their interrogation. But Strader refuses to confess.
He did agree to an interview and denied any involvement in the Kemp case.
There's only one way to determine if he's telling the truth.
We were able to obtain some DNA, and we forwarded that to the lab to be tested to see if it matched the unknown DNA samples we had from our crime scene.
But the case against James Strader is about to come to a shocking end.
We did receive the results back from the DNA that eliminated Mr. Strader as the suspect in our case.
That was devastating to find out that the DNA did not match and that this was not the person we were looking for.
For the town of Leawood, it's back to square one.
It's just heartbreaking because you know the long search has to continue.
The investigation is in danger of stalling, but Roger Kemp hits on a new idea.
Driving down the road, I looked at the billboards and I thought, well, why not get the composite up on that billboard? Why not get that pickup truck up on that billboard?
It's a clever new strategy to catch a killer.
No way is this guy going to be on the streets. No way is he going to hurt another little girl out there.
Roger launches an all-out media blitz.
Every day I'd get out of bed and I'd say, this is the day we're going to get him. This is the week we're going to get him.
And the grieving father's dedication pays off when a very interesting tip is called in.
We got this lead just in today, and it said, Ted Hoover, who owns his own pool company, he looks like the composite and has a violent temper.
So I think, I'll go out and have a talk with Mr. Hoover and see if we can get him eliminated or not.
Ted Hoover has access to local pools, and he looks enough like the composite to warrant an interview with investigators.
said he owned his own pool contracting company, serviced pools in the area, was familiar with the area. He denied being involved in the homicide.
But when investigators ask Hoover for a DNA sample, he refuses and demands to speak to his lawyer.
His attorney was to contact us and let us know what their position was on providing a DNA sample. And after we didn't hear from him or his attorney within about a week, we again contacted the attorney.
And detectives are stunned by what Hoover's attorney reveals.
The attorney said, well, he's left town. He didn't ever meet with me.
But why would an innocent man just up and leave this lovely town? Could it be that Ted's got something to hide? The town of Leawood is still reeling from Allie Kemp's brutal murder, and the latest suspect in the case has vanished.
We went to the house. The house was in fact vacant, contacted the landlord, and the landlord confirmed that he had left town.
Local pool contractor Ted Hoover has refused to give a DNA sample, and his latest behavior makes him seem even more suspicious.
When he skips town, obviously that moves him up a little bit more. We did initiate a search nationwide for Teddy Hoover, and were unable to come up with Teddy Hoover reestablishing himself in any location.
Could another suspect have slipped through their fingers? On the edge of frustration, investigators take a closer look at the tips that pointed them to Hoover. And there, they discover some useful information.
The second tip identified the girlfriend's name, the fiancée.
Detectives do a search for Hoover's fiancée, and they find her living in Connecticut with another man, one Benjamin Appleby.
When Benjamin Appleby was run through the database here locally, it showed the previous arrests for the robbery and a sex crime case.
And Benjamin Appleby's mugshot reveals a familiar face.
We felt like Ben Appleby was using the alias of Mr. Hoover. We felt confident that he was living with the fiancée in Connecticut.
It looks like Ted Hoover's real name is Benjamin Appleby, and it's time to bring him in.
We had worked it out with the Connecticut authorities that they would arrest him at his residence. They, in fact, had some warrants for some indecent exposure incidents. We would stay out of the arrest so that he would not even know we were in town.
The arrest goes off without incident. Appleby is taken to the Connecticut State Police headquarters. Now it's time for the Kansas authorities to make themselves known.
We had 2 interview rooms set up. The first interview room was just a plain interview room. The second interview room we had staged with some props.
When Appleby enters that second interview room, he sees a case file with his name on it, pictures from the crime scene, and a chart naming him as Allie Kemp's killer.
Once he got in the second room and saw what we had on him, I think he realized that he wasn't going to be able to continue to lie his way out of it. And he knew his DNA was going to match.
Benjamin Appleby knows his game is up. Now the truth finally comes out.
He had gone to the pool, he said, to take over the maintenance on the pool.
When Appleby sees Allie, he tries to hit on her, but she rejects his advances.
He lost his temper and started physically assaulting Miss Kemp, beat her, threw her down on the pump room floor.
Benjamin Appleby admits he is Allie Kemp's killer. At trial, Appleby claims there was no premeditation, but the jury doesn't think so.
He was found guilty of capital murder, which is premeditated first-degree murder, and attempted rape. He got sentenced to the hard 50, which in Kansas means he won't be eligible for parole until he serves at least 50 years. Based on his background and record, I can't imagine that he'll ever be granted parole.
The parents of Leawood can finally exhale.
You know, what a relief.
And all the while, we had no idea where this person was.
No. You know, the thing is, it was really her father and her friends and all the people that kept it out in front of everybody. That composite drawing that looked just like the guy.
But for Roger Kemp, there is little gratification.
You think you'd jump up in the air like one of those TV commercials and click your heels and be all excited, and actually you just sick to your stomach because you realize that really there's someone flesh and blood that could do this to another person.
Tucked away in Lee Hammond's peaceful studio, it's tempting to forget that something this horrible ever happened in Leawood. But as her students make their final brushstrokes, Lee knows her most important work isn't done in the classroom.
To be able to help find someone and get them off the street before they can hurt anybody else, it's the most meaningful thing in the world.
Catching a criminal might turn out to be Lee Hammond's true masterpiece.